going to do a Q&A. So can all the speakers come up, please? Thomas and Stefan. We're going to start with your questions. Please sit down. Have a seat. When you answer the question, please pass this mic to the other speakers. And there will be someone in the audience with a mic. And I know there are a lot of questions in the audience, so let's do those first. Who has questions for the speakers? Who's first? All right, perfect.
Hi. Some of you mentioned cooperation with patient organizations. In my experience, patient organizations are very cautious. In my case, Parkinson Association. Could you elaborate a little bit on how you work with them?
Yeah. We contact the patient's organization, and the Parkinson organization in Denmark were not interested. But I have a lot of Parkinson patients, and I know we are all very fascinated about like one case that really had shown that this was something that kind of saved his life. And if you want to see it, you can go in my LinkedIn profile. His name is Jesper, and he's there with small video clips. And he is an ambassador for his patients, his fellow patient that has Parkinson, because he was treated with all kind of anti-Parkinson medicine, and it didn't help, and he had so much side effects. So next step was deep brain stimulation, and he had Parkinson when he was 48. And when he came to me, he was in beginning of the 50s, and he had help 5 times a day. Couldn't eat, couldn't walk, couldn't do his personal hygiene and so on. And now he doesn't have any help. And he's treated with a combination of THC and CBD in quite high dose, but he's doing very good. But in general, with the organization like MS organization, they're in our pilot program, so it's very important that we work together with them. The other organizations that just showed up, it is an organization from cancer patients that have neuropathic pain or weight loss after cancer. So and they have reached out and they need help. And many of these patient organizations reach out because they don't think that they get the help in the healthcare system with their doctors, like the neurologist, the oncologist, and so on. They don't think they are taking seriously. And in the UK, there's a huge patient organization, and they really have a strong voice. And I think my private opinion is that they are our customers. We are there for them, but we also have to take care of them. We have to remember the first vow in our doctor's oath is like, do no harm. So I think they have a place.
Anybody else?
A general question to all the speakers. What do you think about the use of medical cannabis to treat Alzheimer patients? Because today you talk about a different disease, but no one of you mentioned about the potential of cannabis to treat Alzheimer disease. What do you think?
Microphone. Hello? Good.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll try to answer this one. Cannabinoids have shown very high therapeutic promise when it comes to neurodegenerative diseases. There are actually studies that show that THC has beneficial effects in removing amyloid beta plaques. CBD has other effects. As I mentioned earlier, CBD is a PPAR gamma agonist, which also is another mode of mechanism that is believed to be very beneficial in neurodegenerative diseases. There aren't that many clinical studies made, obviously, where we are today, but there's great promise, I'd say, for cannabinoid therapeutics in neurodegenerative diseases and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in particular.
I have many patients in the clinic with Alzheimer, and they're profiting very good from cannabis treatment. It can be a little difficult to make the patient evaluate the treatment, but the family can see that they are more calm, they sleep better, they eat better, and can be more present in their life. And it's harmless, so why not?
Ah, we need a mic over here. We're coming that way.
Maybe I start with a question then. I'm just curious about your perspective on the kind of the medicinal effects that cannabis can have, because it's also a bit of a spiritual experience just to use cannabis. And you were talking about like moving away from the Bob Marley experience and moving into a more lab experience. But what is your perspective on that there might be medicinal effects that you're missing by doing that?
What do you exactly mean? About the spiritual effect?
That there might be, I don't know your personal experience of using cannabis, the three of you that are up on stage, but maybe there are people in the audience here that might understand my perspective, but there might be an enhanced sense of connection to the ecosystem maybe, or a connection to a spiritual experience of being human, and these effects can have a very calming effects of safety and being held by universe, or whatever words you want to use, that can also have a very good effect on psychosomatic pain and pain relief. So I'm just curious about your perspective on this.
We know that cannabis are creating homeostasis in the body, and if you are, like you described, very much under stress, the system goes out of function. And we can also see in the clinic that there are some patients where it's not working at all, no effect at all. It can be either they don't take it, they sell it, or they don't react on it. And it's the endocannabinoid system that probably is very individual in the body. And for somebody, they really balance with the cannabis. But again, like you also said, Thomas, we have to distinguish between using cannabis recreational and cannabis as a therapeutical medication. And that is not that I'm not against cannabis at all. For me, it would be much easier if it was legalized. But to all the resistance, we have to be very strong in our definition that this is medical cannabis and is therapeutical. But yes, therapeutical could also be an experience that makes you more cosmic, like a whole person. And if you are a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you might aim that goal. But also for our chronic pain patient that have been broken both physically, mentally, socially, and existentially.
It's interesting because, just to follow up, your production facility, how much did it cost to build?
So the facility we have right now, we probably spend something like 50 million.
Euros?
No.
Dollars?
Krona.
Krona?
Yeah.
Okay. And in dollars, that's what?
Yeah.
5 million?
Yeah. Something
Okay.
like, 10.
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 million.
Yeah.
And that's one facility.
That's one facility.
And
yes.
how many people can be treated with that one facility?
Whoa. I would imagine that we could at full capacity, we could probably treat 100,000 plus a month.
100,000 a month. And how many people are on Earth right now?
Yeah.
So this is why the Bob Marley version might have a place in the world. I know that in Europe, there's stigma, right? And so the stigma's with the Bob Marley version. Your version in Stenocare doesn't have that stigma, right? Because your GMP, it's quite a facility, right? And then I know that many people in Europe smoke tobacco. Is tobacco pesticide-free? No, not pesticide-free. So tobacco's not GMP, and it's not a medicine.
No.
So is this fair and right? in your opinion?
But I think
No, but-
I think that Tina is
Yes.
making a point because, and especially like we are here in Stockholm today at the first conference where we are hopefully starting a journey for patients in the country, and therefore at this very early stage, it's really, really important. That's what we've learned in Denmark and certainly other countries, that if we're not very careful, the journey might end before it even gets started. And this is why in my presentation and the approach that we've decided from our facility is to be perhaps overly pharmaceutical, overly medical, because that's all because in the minds of the medicine agencies and the health authorities, it's all about patient safety. So the only way you convince the authorities that this is the top of our mind, patient safety, is we need to be perhaps a little black and white in our approach right now. I agree over time it'll move in more directions, but right now we shouldn't jeopardize all the good things that is actually possible with patients' treatment because we want to go too cosmic about the treatment.
Sure.
So I totally understand what you're saying. I totally agree on the premise that you have, but I think we need to be very careful, and I think that's also your learning, because as Tina was saying, you probably haven't read all the Danish newspapers and seen all the press, but if you go and read, this lady really taking a lot of beating as a front leader of treatment in Denmark, and that's because there's a stigma. So
Yeah.
that's the reality, and we need to accept that,
We
unfortunately.
don't want to go back to prohibition, right? We don't want to go back to prohibition. And it was the same thing. It's going to be the same way in the United States when the federal government finally legalizes. It's going to be very strict. It's going to be GMP. It's going to be grown indoors. And it's part of an evolutionary process. But I think it's also important to recognize that we are being strategic politically and also medically, but we also know that there's a lot of people in the world, 7 billion, who aren't going to be able to access the medical form, and they are going to need, for lack of a better term, the Bob Marley formulations for a while. Okay, any other questions from the audience? I think we had some over here. Over here. Oh, all right. Well, you're next. You're going to have to run from there over here. Oh, no. You have been overruled. That's a lesson in persistence. You are an activist. I hereby declare you an activist. Good. Stay loud. Stay proud.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I wondered, because when you take these products, when we can get them in Sweden, how do we patients know that we can get these products? Because I had to go to Tina Horstedt in Denmark to realize that we have this fantastic Bedrocan, this product that I can get when I have chronic pains with cancer, terminal cancer. So I've been using this. I had this 2017. So I've been using this since 2018, 2019. And then I came back to Sweden, and I had this, and I said, no, hello, this product, where is it? How can I get it? And I could get it in Sweden. But when you go to Sweden with Stenocare's products, do you educate any doctors? Do you tell them what product is coming into Sweden so they can get this information to their patients? Or is it all hidden? Because we don't know, actually, if you don't dig a lot. Thank you.
It's an excellent question, in the sense that you are right. There's very little transparency on which products is available in Sweden. Actually, it's the same in Denmark. So only if you know which website to go to. So the VARA, VARA system in Sweden, which is where you keep an overview of all medicine, you can go and actually search and find the product. So if you go, for example, on stenocare.se, we have a link to the products in that medical system in Sweden, so that's where you would find it. But then, so what do we do? How come you didn't put up posters in Stockholm, Stenocare, when you had it? And we would have liked to, but it's not legal. Actually, because we are trading on NASDAQ, we, of course, must tell the stock market, the investors, that we had a product into Sweden. So we sent out a release on NASDAQ that we had this product now available. And it took like 2 months, and we had a letter from the Swedish Medicine Agency saying, this is marketing. You are telling about a product that you want to sell. Actually not. We were forced by the law, by the stockbroking law in the world, to actually announce that we had a product approved. So in a way, even though we didn't tell the patients, we told the investors and the shareholders, that became a problem for us. So it tells you that it's not, when we are talking medical cannabis, there's a different measurement on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So back to, so can we be more activistic in our approach? No, we cannot. We actually need to be extra like a Boy Scout, as in lack of a better word, when we go in. So we basically bring the product into the market and hope someone figures out that it's there, because that's kind of what the authorities expect us to do. They expect us to do absolutely nothing. But you are right, and I think the point that Tina was making in her presentation, it's all about education. So it's the small ripples in the water. So you have 1 or 2 doctors that know about it. They would hopefully talk to their peers. And this way, it ripples out the water, as you see the picture for you. Over time, more and more will hear about it. But then in the meantime, there's patients and people like yourself that's caught in that lack of information and transparency. And I apologize for that, but we would really like to change it, but we can't right now. We need to be a Boy Scout.
I wonder, though, can patients like you educate without getting in trouble here in Sweden? Or if you start educating, will the government write you a letter and say, you cannot talk about this?
I do educate all the time.
Yeah.
I do educate all the time. I have meetings and stuff like this to talk about this subject and to talk about cannabis, and that I'm rather legally dead, or I'm rather legally healthy than vad fan heter det? How is it in English? Than dead, yes, using cannabis instead of all these opioids that they want to give me and all this stuff, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we all need to be activists, right?
But I think the question about the patient organization and their roles, it could be a path. I know in Denmark they've been very hesitant to speak on behalf of their members, I mean the patients. I've certainly experienced that. They like to talk with the industry, but only when the microphone is closed. They don't want to get on stage and say, yep, we believe in it, we support it. But there might be patient organizations here in Sweden that could be the one telling at least or informing that this treatment is actually available. And there's several products. You've discovered the products you bought in Denmark is available. There's many products available in Sweden right now. It's just a secret, unfortunately.
I have a comment on that, being a doctor. I think that's a very simple question.
You're getting your exercise today. Oh, yes.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Okay, I just wanted to comment because I think there's a very simple answer to that, and that is our healthcare system in itself. We have a system that is very much run on politics and economy. And we are, as doctors, sort of forced into lanes where we are supposed to follow certain protocols. And we have stopped asking the question, why? So hence, you get 10 to 15 minutes with your patients. And I mean, also here, we're focusing on treating symptoms, not why they're there. Not why do I get, not back to the root cause. Why do you have neuropathic pain? Why do you get your problem? And is there anything I as a doctor actually could do to help resolve that? So I think that the easy answer to that, it's legislation, but it's also that today as doctors, we are confined to following. And when we break protocol, we are questioned and we are considered controversial, and so on. So we are run by economy, and these drugs are now very expensive. Hence, you would want to avoid it. We have committees saying what drugs to use or not to use. So I think that's the answer as well. It's not just the legislation, but it is the way we practice today.
But many of my Swedish patients, like Jørgen Deliger, if they came from my clinic and they could prove that they really benefit from the cannabis treatment, then the doctor could apply for lægemiddelverket and then had the medicine. Yeah. But also now you can have the oils, the capsules, like our pharmacy in Glostrup are producing. It's possible to have that in Sweden.
Not the capsules, and we only got this isolated oil now.
But you didn't get the full spectrum oil.
I didn't get the full spectrum oil, and they're trying to tell me that this should be the same as my Bedrocan. And I say, no, it's not the same, and I don't get the same effect at all for me. So this has been working really exceptional for me, and I have not taken anything else, and I've been taking the cancer. It's been not stopping, but it's okay. So it's very, very good. I don't use sleeping pills, no painkillers, no nothing of that really. So this is really the shit.
Yeah, you arranged, I never forget that you arranged the green buses that came from Gothenburg to my clinic in...
16 patients got their medicine that day from you.
Yeah, I remember.
That was so amazing. Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
So Stefan, is the endocannabinoid system taught in medical schools or pharmacy schools at all?
No, not at all.
Why?
That's a very good question, but I believe it's because it's such a new discovery. So
Yes, from the 90s.
Yeah.
It takes time.
it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but it's not taught in only one university up in the northern region of Jutland. It's on the medical students in neurophysiology.
Do you think that will change in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? What do you think?
3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Swedish is very slow people.
We are in America too. Yes, certainly at the federal level.
I'd like to make a comment for Angela, because I think it's horrible what has happened to her. She's had a full spectrum medicine that has been working wonders for her. And the thing is, if a doctor prescribed it for breakthrough pain, then the only way to treat or alleviate breakthrough pain is through getting a high concentration in your bloodstream very rapidly. And that you can't do with an oil, especially not an isolate oil or any oil for that matter. You need to get a high concentration in your bloodstream rapidly. And oils are not good for that. So that's something that is lacking for now in Sweden.
But about the education, I think if we could find out to do an organization, Scandinavian organization, and make platforms for education, that certainly Corona has taught us that we can meet on Zoom or Teams, and then the skilled doctor who knows about the clinic and how to work with cannabis, also together with all this other kind of medication, and with you that goes much more into detail in the pharmacology molecule way of the knowledge that you have. I think that is the future. Also to come and train. I have a lot of doctors that come and train in my clinic. A month ago I had a Portuguese doctor too. So it's possible, but you have to spread the rumors.
Yes.
I have quite a few questions. I'll just take one. You mentioned that arachidonic acid, Stefan, was like the precursor to a couple of these endocannabinoids. And my question is, could like a dietary lack of, say, polyunsaturated fats be, could you supplement these treatments with cannabinoid, for example, CBD and THC treatments with dietary supplements of polyunsaturated fatty acids, for example? Is that something that's been worked on, or is that even a relevant avenue?
It is relevant because, all our phospholipids in the cell membranes, components of that is arachidonic acid, and omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids do contain arachidonic acids. So an imbalance in your essential omega fatty acids could possibly lead to an imbalance in endocannabinoid deficiency and disease. Does that?
Is it something that's been worked on? Is it something that has been pursued, to your knowledge? Or?
Not to my knowledge, not by a lot at least. I think there's been a few studies that have shown that especially metabolites from olive oil seem to have some endocannabinoid-like properties.
I think it's true that cannabis hemp seed oil is high in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. So you could use cannabis for that. Yeah, well, many things.
There's one.
All right, after this question, we'll go over there.
Yeah. I was wondering if there are any studies on cannabis and for stroke patients?
One more time?
For stroke patients, do you have any studies, or do you know anything about using cannabis?
Yeah, we treat them in the clinic.
Treatment.
Yeah, but I can't recall, especially for stroke, but I think it goes into more or less brain damage, and that we know that that cannabinoids can be neuroprotective, and in that way around. And we see also if when they have strokes from bleedings or from clots, they develop a central neuropathic pain, and cannabis is effective against central neuropathic pain. Yeah, you can use it, no problem. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to be precautious with dosing, because if it's THC, they get dizzy and they can maybe fall and break hips or whatever. So.
CBD may make you overreact and get unsensitive to dangers.
Yeah. No, it's safe. Yeah.
I can make a comment on that as well. There are some animal studies actually that shows that the endocannabinoid is highly relevant and important in the immediate after effects of a ischemic stroke. There is an immediate release of anandamide and 2-HE to try to minimize the damages. It's a homeostatic mechanism that we can come back to. So it's not been shown in humans, but the endocannabinoids are released in those kind of situations in animal models.
Okay, over here.
Thank you, at last. I have a question regarding the tolerance, both biochemically and in your experience, Tina. Do patients get more and more tolerant and need higher dosages, or how is it?
Yeah, some people, they quickly develop tolerance, and we had to go up high in dose. and we have in this task force group that I have been a part of, and we have published it on the net, on the PubMed, and we discussed very much a limit from 40 milligram to 80 milligram of THC, and if you see the tolerance is quickly developed, then you stop the treatment and you kind of reboot the system for a month, and then you start over again. My colleagues in Canada and the US, they have a lot of different kind of cannabis medication that they can choose between, so they just swap to another chemo. So it's in that way they can handle the tolerance. With opioids, we see it too. So if I am treating a patient with oxycodone chloride and they quickly develop tolerance, I switch to like methadone. In order to get more stability. So probably there is some mechanisms going on that we're not quite sure of what it is. But it's also the regulation of the cannabinoids receptors. You can maybe go into that.
Yeah.
So
basically all receptors act in this way. When they're activated by a strong agonist, in this case, if you're a heavy consumer of THC-rich cannabis, it will downregulate your CB1 receptors. Not for a long time, it will be for a brief duration. I think in a week or two, you will regain your normal levels of cannabinoid receptor levels. So, yeah, it's a homeostatic mechanism again to protect yourself from overstimulation of the endocannabinoid system.
many of my patients, they have a cannabis holiday once a year. And the patient that I have treated for longest time, it's 8 years. And he does that every year.
But then on the other hand, it looks like smaller doses of especially CBD-rich cannabis can actually act as a tonic to heighten your basal endogenous tone, your endocannabinoid tone. But it's very different from consuming large amounts of THC-rich cannabis all of the time.
One more over here. And then we'll come back to the middle.
My name is Daniel, and I'm a pharmacist. I would just like to add to the discussion that patients can ask their doctors for, and the correct term is licensläkemedel. And all doctors in Sweden can prescribe licensläkemedel. And the process is like this. The doctor writes a licensmotivering, sends it to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy sends the application to Läkemedelsverket. And this is something that all doctors can do. You don't need any competence as a specialist doctor.
How long does it take, that process, until the medicine's in the hand of the patient?
It depends very much on the on how much time Läkemedelsverket needs to assess and investigate the application. So
average?
But
average 2 weeks.
2 weeks? A few days, someone said over here? So somewhere, 3 days to 2 weeks, somewhere in there. Okay?
I have a question just about, is there certain diseases or condition where cannabis should not be combined? For example, or strains of cannabis, for example, sativa with heart diseases, where it can increase the pulse, or
yeah, it's if you have a unstable heart disease, it's not recommended to inhalate cannabis because of the very fast concentration in the blood of THC that can get the pulse up. So I wouldn't recommend that, but oils and capsule goes fine. We haven't had any at all incidents with our severe ill heart patient.
Okay, let's move back to the middle. This gentleman.
Thank you. It's just for the pharmacist. What would happen to a doctor in Sweden if he just randomly prescribed cannabis without being specialist to a patient? Because in Denmark, if Tina gave medical cannabis to me, she would be beaten up by the medicines agency.
I have also. Do you have to be a specialist to prescribe cannabis formulation, both medically and the one that are on the special license?
No, actually not. And this can be checked by going into the VARA database. At the VARA database, you can see which medicines that require specialist competence to be prescribed. And to answer your question, I don't think it would be possible, actually, for a doctor to prescribe medical cannabis without having the license motivering and then application approved.
But he would not be put in the jail.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I don't think so. No. The pharmacy wouldn't give the patient the medicine unless there is an approved application by Läkemedelsverket. So there is no risk. And no. Any doctor can apply for a licensläkemedel. Allmänläkare also. And then it's up to, of course, Läkemedelsverket to assess the application. And it might be that if you are not a specialist, you might get tough questions from Läkemedelsverket. And they won't approve the application, but that's another discussion. And it's up to Läkemedelsverket. And that's why, actually, licensläkemedel should always be the priority before extempore. Because when you apply for a licensläkemedel, you give Läkemedelsverket a chance to assess the application. So they have a certain amount of control. So that's why licensläkemedel is always number 2 on the list. First you have approved medicines, then you have licensläkemedel, and then you have extempore.
Okay. In the middle, yes, we have this. Middle table has a couple questions. Ladies first. Both ladies.
Hello, my name is Anna, and I've been working with lecturing about the EC system for a couple of years. And you speak a lot about THC. Why?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, all of you.
Okay.
Because, medication, the hemp and the hemp oil as a broad spectrum product is not a medication. It goes like a food supplement.
But it's illegal in Denmark.
But with THC, you speak a lot about THC. I'm one person that never can use any THC because of my epilepsy. I've done this for a long time, and I don't medication anymore. I have no epilepsy symptoms anymore. It was horrible before. I don't have any pain. Before I was lame from the stomach and down and had a lot of pain. I work with a lot of people with a lot of pain, with cancer, with epilepsy, with Parkinson, a lot of things, issues. But no one needs THC. So I just wonder, what do we speak so much THC?
Because it's there where the research are. There are very few CBD randomized clinical trials. It's coming now, but half of my patients are treated with CBD full spectrum oils and don't need THC. But there is a little, there's like 100 milligrams of CBD and 2 milligrams of THC per milliliter, and that's 0.2 THC. And if you consider the entourage effects, we have better effect for pain treatment, and then we go for the dose of the THC because it's a THC that creates the side effects. So we are not afraid of using high doses of CBD, not at all. The only thing that is limited with CBD, that's the price. And for us in Denmark, we can't get a reimbursement for CBD products unless you have CBD for epilepsy and a neurologist apply for the reimbursement. I cannot, as a pain doctor, reply, yes, I can do it, and I do it, but I always get rejected.
Yeah, I understand that one. But
I can make a comment. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
it's also because of the mechanism of action of THC is a lot more easier to understand, and it's a lot more researched than the mechanism of action of CBD. Since THC acts on the receptor as a conventional agonist, activating them, while CBD has much more of a complicated mode of action, upregulating the endocannabinoid system while also dealing with other pharmaceutical targets outside of the endocannabinoid system.
Dr. Julie Molke will later on give a lecture, and I think, Julie, you will talk about CBD and yeah.
Okay, I think we have to have lunch now. Is that right? You want one more question, maybe over here? Two more questions over here. And everyone's here all day, so don't be afraid to have an individual conversation.
Hi. I just wanted to say I grew up in Texas and was in a car accident and got addicted to hydrocodone. I moved back to Sweden, and Aurim Healthcare is the first place that has treated me with any respect, so I just want to say thank you, because all the other doctors around here, they didn't want to have anything to do to help me, so thank you.
What, was there another question over here?
Yeah, there's a hand over there.
Right there. And maybe that'll be our last question before lunch. Oh, maybe two more.
Thank you. Thank you for a very nice conference. So, Stefan, you were speaking a little bit about PTSD, and Trine, you were also speaking about that. So I'm wondering if you in Denmark are treating patients with PTSD. And then my next question is also for the Danish. What's the youngest patient you're treating? Are you treating children as well? Because in Sweden, at least via Aureum, there's not yet. So I'm curious to hear about both PTSD and children.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, we do treat patients with PTSD. It seems like the incidence of PTSD is rising, and as I told you, I have a lot of Swedish patients, and a lot of them come with a PTSD diagnosis. We treat them with high doses of THC in order to take down the flashbacks episodes they can have, especially during the night. So I have some patients, they have 40 milligrams of THC before they go to sleep, and it really reduces the flashbacks with up to 75%. And it gives them a whole other kind of life quality. But as I told you, it's not in our program, so they often come. I treat the pain, but I observe that the PTSD is reduced. Regarding the children, I treated them in the beginning when I was very naive and had a lot of courage. But I must say, I was reported by a lot of my colleagues to the Danish Patients Safety Agency, and that was not a very nice experience. It was quite traumatic because they really threatened me and wanted to take my license. And these patients were from 4 to 16 years old, and I gave them CBD isolate totally without THC. But I had good support from Glostrup Pharmacy, so we could, and phytoreceptors, so we could prove that this was without THC, because the doctors that reported me, they didn't know the difference between cannabis-based medicine and medical cannabis. So they accused me of treating children with medical cannabis. And at that time, we didn't even have the flowers that was medical cannabis in the Danish definition. So in that way around, and with paying a lot of 100,000 to private lawyers, I managed to get out. But it is very sad that children can't have the same good treatment as adult patients. They are patients after all, and many of the pediatric patients that have juvenile arthritis, like youth arthritis. They are very poor help. They cannot maybe stand the biological treatment or the chemotherapy that they are having. So the parents go to the illegal market or to the website. They take the full responsibility and dose the kids, and it's unworthy. But I don't know how we can come. Also with the cancer patient, we know that the parents are medicated when they are admitted to hospital and they are dying, and that we cannot take the responsibility away from the parents, so we can give them medication that we precisely know what contains, that are made on laboratories and in pharmacies. So it's very sad.
Okay. Is there one more? Yes, one more and then lunch.
How to spread the information that you can't spread. We are activists. My name is Ida. This is Dana. I'm sure there are more activists in this room that are doing and have been doing the work of going out there and just putting the word out. But we need funds. We need knowledge. That's why we're here. We are the funders behind something that we call Cannabis or the Cannabis. So we just go out and we meet people and we talk about weed. And this is what is like the conversations that needs to be held. We can have them, but we need the help so that we can help you. So that's the way to just help each other.
Yeah,
Good.
Thank you for that.
What a great morning we had. Thank you to our speakers. And does anyone know where lunch is? Straight out or upstairs? Just right outside the door, you'll see a big dining room, and we will have lunch now. Thank you all.